Shore time means finishing on Friday is as good as finishing on Tuesday.
What short time means to me is when the task is done, I'm done, and I'm done.
Shore time means I can build you a house out of 550 cord and duct tape. You wouldn't want to live there, but I can build it. On today's installment of Shore Time, we're going to be taking a look into an old broken outboard with an eye towards rebuilding it and flipping it for profit. So let's head on over to Harrison Marina and check out that outboard. We like to make a lot of jokes about good mechanic, bad mechanic. It's a lot of fun and keeps the atmosphere light. But the truth is, Curtis and I really value each other's input, and every decision we make is a team decision. So with this outboard, we're talking serious money. We take a look at it separately and then discuss what we're going to do. Every mechanic is going to have a slightly different process about how he evaluates things. What I like to do is check around all the major system gaskets for leaks and whatnot. The other thing I like to do is check all the major system linkages.
Throttle assembly feels smooth.
So what's causing low compression in cylinder number 4? Curtis and I disagree.
I'm just not seeing a whole lot of signs of leaking from the head gasket. I'm just not. I'm really still thinking this is all about rings.
So we know the outboard had low compression on the bottom 2 cylinders. The seller told us that, but after looking at it, I feel really good that it's probably just a head gasket. Now, we still want to tear it down, do a rebuild on it, do rings, check everything out, get it ready to go, completely rebuilt to go, but I think it looks like a good candidate. I don't see anything that scares me away.
We're definitely going to pull the trigger. The question then becomes, how do we get it home? We could have gotten a factory engine hoist for about $500, and we decided to build our own instead for about the same cost of materials, but it's much, much more versatile and mobile, and the wheels are a lot better on our shore time version. And that shore time version really isn't all that mysterious. It's basically a scaffolding, a couple of 4x4s, some straps, and a chain fall, all with the same tolerances. An older outboard like that is about 600 pounds. And while Curtis and I aren't small and have a pretty good amount of horsepower, we decided to bring in another heavy hitter, Grumpy Mike, a union electrician who has a wealth of related knowledge. Horsepower indeed. While the chain fall is going to do most of the heavy lifting, we still have to get it in position. We still need to be able to push it around. We still, at some point, are going to have to pick that thing up.
1, 2, 3. They're good.
And if you can't immediately see the advantages of the shore time hoist, what it enables us to do is lift that outboard higher, and the wheels allow us to move it across the whole parking lot. But it does have its disadvantages. You have to force things to do what they weren't designed to do in spaces that don't always fit.
Yeah, but there's not much room between the bracket and the transom bracket and the lower end of the motor.
What that means is you have to be able to tie good knots. A surgeon's knot, a widow's knot, something that'll wrap around the engine. You also have to figure out what part of the engine can support the rest of the outboard. Then you have to be able to adjust the height in order to slide it into the truck. Move over, lightweights. Daddy's coming to do the heavy work. It's not just anyone that can pull the chain on a chain fall. It takes knowledge, skill, and gorilla brute strength. Or you have to be able to hand off the camera to someone to make it look good. All kidding aside, we're going to have to jump right to where we hoist the engine into the truck. It took all three of us to push the outboard across the parking lot. Even with the shore time hoist, it wasn't easy. But by the same token, the shore time hoist worked really well. We never would have been able to push that outboard across a parking lot with the small plastic wheels of a traditional engine hoist. And perhaps even more importantly on this first attempt with our own hoist, we learned a few valuable lessons for next time. Next time, we move the outboard to the work shed in the backyard.
The hoist setup worked really well. Lesson learned, we should get another section of scaffolding so that we could just go raise it up and then raise it down when we need to.
I think what we need to do next time, a little different, is we need to get a strap that has some eyelets, 2 or 4 different eyelets to bolt the strap to the motor to help us increase as much lift as we can and keep that motor upright rather than having to balance it like we did this time.
And the biggest lesson I learned is that it's always shore time here on Shore Time. Like, subscribe, and get notified, please.
Shore time means finishing on Friday is as good as finishing on Tuesday.
What short time means to me is when the task is done, I'm done, and I'm done.
Shore time means I can build you a house out of 550 cord and duct tape. You wouldn't want to live there, but I can build it.
Plan of action is going to be to get the scaffolding set up. We got to set up the lowers, put in the crossbars, then get the ladders out, set up the uppers with the crossbars, and then get the 4x4 posts to go across the top and the chain fall and the strap so that then we can wheel it over and hook up the motor.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell he said either. So here's a simple breakdown. We're going to set up a scaffold, put 2 4x4s across it, put a strap to it, put a chain fall on the strap, and the whole thing will have a duty rating of about 2,500 pounds. More than enough to lift a 600-pound outboard. The last time we did this, things went pretty well, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make a few changes to make things better. And by better, I mean faster, easier, and more mobile. And let me tell you, my friends, that is the end of that.
I kind of like to do it the same way.
Well, that's not the first time Curtis and I have disagreed, and it won't be the last. And the moment of truth is upon us, lifting up the outboard.
Start
with the new and improved shore time hoist. A chain fall is an absolute godsend to us. It enables us to pick up a lot of weight with a little bit of effort. It does that with a very high gear ratio, which takes a long time. And that's actually a good thing. Taking a long time enables us to monitor what's going on and to reapportion weight as it lifts. 600 pounds is, after all, 600 pounds. And the main challenge this time isn't just getting an outboard across a parking lot. It has to go from the front yard to the backyard and onto a stand. That compelled us to make some improvements on the short time hoist. That meant we had to pay particular attention to mobility. The first version of the short time hoist already had all-terrain wheels. So we had to figure out another way to make the hoist more mobile. The big difference this week is we've got a second section of scaffolding, which increases the height over the truck so that we can hoist it more easily in and out and onto the stand. That increased height did indeed help with mobility. It kept the outboard higher off the ground. It also made the whole thing more unstable. We needed a different way to get it to the stand. The ground on the eastern shore is always waterlogged. That makes it a lot harder to take a hoist across the front yard and into the backyard and onto the stand. So this time we went with Plan C. Yes, you heard that right. Plan C. Plan A was the hoist itself. Plan B was Roxanne the four-wheeler with a tow capacity of 1,500 pounds. Instead, we have to use the yellow tractor with a tow capacity of about 500 pounds. Biggest concern isn't power, but weight distribution.
I'm just looking at balancing. It seems to be doing okay.
At least the utility trailer has a rating of 1,100 pounds. And after all, this is shore time. Like I said, the big issue isn't power, but weight distribution. And the reason why weight distribution is an issue is because the outboard actually weighs more than the tractor.
Keep kicking.
Which makes steering that much more difficult. With Curtis directing, Grumpy Mike did a stellar job of backing up that outboard to the stand on an overloaded trailer. Ah, the stand. Which brings us to another issue. I am absolutely too cheap to spend as much as $1,500 on a factory-made stand. So I built one myself, out of scrap wood from behind the shed. Which, of course, created another issue. Even though I measured the stands to fit most brackets, we seem to have trouble getting this outboard onto the top of the stand. Curtis decided to notch the wood. At the time, I agreed, because it seemed to make a lot of sense. I should have remembered that I rarely make sense.
As it turns out, notching the wood didn't really work either, so we're going to have to wind up going to the hardware store and getting a new piece of hardware to put across that stand.
And having to buy more wood cost us time.
As always, things are going according to shore time. We didn't get done what we wanted to do today, so we're spending a little time in the shed at night cutting bolts and putting back together that stand.
So that's 1 3/4 inches.
Have I mentioned before that I'm really cheap? Yeah. So instead of buying factory-made bolts, I pretty much made my own, which means we have to grind them down. And those bolts I'm grinding are what hold the outboard to the stand. But none of that matters unless the outboard actually fits. And by fits, that means the transom bracket on the outboard goes snugly onto the top of the stand. I'm calling that a success. The only things remaining before we call it a night are to release tension from the hoist by lowering the chain and tightening the outboard to the stand. And of course, we were very, very happy when the stand held the entire weight of the outboard without issue. Since this is all a fairly new process to us, you might imagine we learned a few lessons in building our own hoist and building our own stand.
Stupid, but the best lesson I learned today was learning some of the sizes of a bolt and knowing what size head is going to be on that bolt, which Mike is amazing at.
My lesson for today, even though impact tools are a lot stronger, a lot better in most situations, every now and again you actually need to have a drill that's a drill. Plus, of course, it's always shore time here at Shore Time.
Like, subscribe, and get notified, please.